We're just starting the recording. It's about 7 after the beginning of the meeting, and we've got one attendee, but she is in dual meetings. So we're going to remain quiet and wait for other people to join.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing good, thank you.
Okay, didn't hear you very clearly. Before, how do I pronounce your name? Pulkit?
Yes, it's Pul.
Pul.
Yep,
Okay.
Pul. So it's Pul. Uh, Pulkit. Yep.
Okay. So we have a few minutes before other people join.
Sure.
If you want, we can go ahead and interact. If you would rather wait for others to join, I can work.
I'm okay with anything.
Okay.
Whatever works with you.
Okay. We had some interaction before. Let me share my screen.
Sure. I think you guys had a meeting yesterday.
Yes.
If I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
So I was going to show you what we had done, but this is why it might be better to wait to see if other people join. So I have some slides to sort of walk through. And what we do is we go around and do some introductions. And with you and me in the room, I would like to hear, we talked about your name, but I'd like to hear where you're at and your experiences. But so would other members. So let's give them another 5 minutes and see if we can't get other people to join before we jump in.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
I'm going to be on mute again. I'm just going to help one more person on a call.
Okay.
And I will be back in 2 minutes.
Yep.
Thanks.
Hi, Izzy. Welcome back.
Hi. Sorry I'm a little bit late. I was just wrapping up another meeting and then trying to get lunch.
Yeah, no worries. I think we've got another couple minutes if you want to take some bites.
No, I'm good. I already did. I'm good. I'm all set though.
I'm learning as I go on this setting up the meetings, and I think one of the lessons learned is don't start on the half an hour.
So it's fine. It happens.
Pulkit is online with us, but he is actually on a support call. Okay, other people are coming in. So Martin is just joining.
All right, there you go. Nice.
And what I was going to do is just sort of catch us up with where we were yesterday and have Pulkit introduce himself. And I've sort of extended the slides to get into some of the architecture questions. So I don't know if Peter's going to be on board, but he's the one that had asked about that. So we can sort of go through. Martin, how much have you heard? He's just plugging in earphones. Are you hearing us now? And answering his phone.
I got a call.
Go ahead.
Okay.
He's a busy man.
Yeah, these things happen.
So how about yourself? Are you keeping busy with Watershed?
Yes, for sure. I actually just had my my 90-day check-in. So yeah, it's incredible that I've only been working there for 3 months, but it also feels like a very long time.
Yeah.
It's just been a very eventful 3 months. So
I bet the pace is a challenge.
A little bit, yeah, because there's a lot of just kind of getting used to the interface, and then like the some of the back end stuff that we do also. But it's been really fun, and like the scale of the work has been amazing too, right? Like we have like very, very big customers like Visa that we work with, and so you can imagine the volume of statements that are coming in just from them, and we have to process all of those in a way that's quick enough so that on the on the Visa end, when their users are looking at the dashboards, like they actually make sense, right? So it's been just a really fun experience to just to kind of think in that sort of a scale, because I think as part of this cohort, the xAPI cohort, you sort of like try out with like these little storyline files, and it's like, oh great, I can send from like a single storyline file. But then when you're actually working on an enterprise system that's like, oh god, we've got like 10 data sources that are all sending data in.
Yeah.
How do you process that and build reports that actually will work and will load?
From what I've seen, the reporting side of things is still sort of the Wild West. Each LRS vendor is sort of saying, oh, well, let's just add that in. And, instead of building the learning record consumer, they're sort of adding it in to their LRS as an added feature and selling, So I look at that and I see it from the perspective of that's not going to be standardized. If I start here and take something somewhere else, that's going to break. So I applaud them for doing it on one hand, but on the other hand, it makes me reluctant to use some of those features because they're proprietary. So,
well, I mean, the way that I would say it is, let's just say that they sort of impact the way that you build the statement in the first place, because you're going to have to retrieve them, and
you have to design for it.
You have to design them in a certain way so that the reports will actually work.
Yeah. So that's part of what I'm getting at, and I'm hoping that Martin will be able to jump back in here and Polkit will come back off his call. It sounded like he was doing some support work as well.
Yeah.
So I think that's the mode you're in.
I'm there.
Yeah.
I'm
there
there.
he is.
I'm back.
Okay.
Hello. Hey, Izzy.
I'm going to switch us over to slides. Izzy and myself were involved yesterday, so let's go ahead and have you introduce yourself and talk a bit about your experience. And
sure.
what we're really doing is just capturing this for the team in the sense, and I'm recording, so we're going to publish this out as a published recording. So obviously we want to have you talk about your background and your experience, but keep the proprietary content talk to a minimum, I would say.
Sure. I'm in the LNG industry from past 6 years. I've implemented 3 LMS in 3 different companies till now. Recently, I changed my job, so I'm working with Excel America as a learning technology analyst.
Okay.
My role is to guide them on which learning tech you should be using, because if you know, these days companies are confused with what is an LXP and what is an LMS and what is an LCMS and everything. So I'm just guiding the company and would be implementing an LXP soon. Not soon, actually, in 2022 for sure, because right now we're just analyzing what things do our learners need and what things do we need, and working on that now.
Okay.
Regarding xAPI, I had done a course 5 years back because my company wanted that, and they said that okay, let's not go with it, so I totally ignored it, and I haven't done xAPI from past 5 years. But HCL wants xAPI, as in I'm sure they have an LRS and they have xAPI statements, but I need to understand how does it work on the back end. I know what an xAPI is and what is a object, what's a verb, and what data is it collecting.
Yep.
But just to understand how does it work on the back end, that's what my main focus is.
Okay.
So
that's actually part of what I'm prepared to talk through a little bit today. The challenges with today being so broken up, I'm setting up the meetings in my personal Zoom account, which is going to limit us to about a 30-minute window, and then I've got them staged to where I can publish the next Zoom meeting information into the chat, and then we can link to the next one. That's going to be a challenge for others to keep up unless I go out to Slack and email and keep sending that out. So there's a little bit of administration side that needs to happen in order to keep things moving forward. But what I've done with these slides, Izzy, you saw a 5-slide version. This goes into a little more detail.
So actually, before you move on, Pulkit, what was your time zone again?
Go
Did
ahead.
you mention that?
What time zone are you?
Eastern.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thanks. I just wanted to confirm that.
Understood. So, in terms of the overview, and if you saw either the recording or the live session from the xAPI cohort, the Torrance learning perspective is sort of talk about these things in abstract. You use a beaker and a dropper, and the challenge I have with that is it's not really showing the path that the data takes. So what I tend to do is look at things as we have 3 core technologies that are defined within the xAPI specification. And these actually are described better as part of the xAPI guide for technical implementers. And I can put this in the chat as we proceed, but it's a document that IEEE has published. They have a Learning Technology Standards Committee technical advisory group on xAPI, and they
I still have the link. I'll just pop it in.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, you did do that for me before. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries.
Unfortunately, that and it's going to happen again today, but that Zoom disappeared right as I was capturing the chat, so I didn't get it copied out to put in my notes. So the idea here is the learning record store is where most people begin, but the truth is what we're all working to build is this learning record provider. So the learning record store is typically a product that another organization, and Izzy and I were talking earlier about Watershed. He's working for one of these vendors that builds and publishes the LRS as software as a service. You can sign up for a demo account with them and be able to use that during the xAPI cohort to store your records. And the idea is it's a demo account. It may go away at some point, but right now we're just sort of experimenting with it. And what I wanted to point out is we're going to be talking through some of the details about us building a learning record provider as part of the xAPI and LiveCode, as part of this team project. And then the third piece is this learning record consumer, which in a sense is a business or could be a business intelligence application, a data pool or data mining operation, as well as being xAPI specific as an LRC, pulling data from the learning record store in a query, pulling back the results from the learning record store, and pulling them into some kind of reporting environment. And one of the things I mentioned, Pulkat, while you were offline, is that a lot of the LRS vendors are including some of the LRC functionality in their products, but the xAPI specification actually identifies them as separate entities. So I sort of perceive that as being somewhat proprietary. The LRS functionality can be certified, but I don't believe there is yet certification for an LRC or LRP. I don't think that ADL has actually published guidelines for that. Izzy, do you have any comments or corrections for me?
No, I guess I would just echo, what you just said too. That yeah, I mean, a lot of the vendors, they like to look at themselves not just as places to store your statements, because that's essentially, you can go to basically any vendor if that's all you wanted, was just to store your statements there. So the way to sort of distinguish yourself is to provide sort of much more detailed reporting. Look at that reporting functionality that actually looks at your data. So integrating something that's sort of like a smaller Tableau, if you will, or like a Power BI kind of dashboard-like experience. So that way you don't have to actually go to another platform to actually look at your data and slice and dice it the way you want.
Yep. So with those comments in mind, one of the things that I've done is sort of captured what an xAPI profile might look like. And the idea is xAPI is a big beast. We tend to talk about, within the cohort, they tend to talk about actor, verb, object, but that is really only the minimum viable product, only the minimum requirements for a valid statement. To actually extend that, you want to have extensions, you want to have context. There's a number of other pieces, timestamps, and other data that should be included. Some of that comes when the learning record provider actually sends the statement to the LRS. The LRS may add in some of that data, but others could be provided by the LRP and the LRS will accept them. So some of that data can be handled either way. It can be handled by the provider or the store. And the idea of the xAPI profile, I mean, the perspective I have is that you can bounce back on this, but CMI5 as an example is one of the things they hold up and say this can help you replicate the functionality of SCORM using xAPI. And the graphic in the lower left shows that there is 9 different vocabulary items. My mouse disappeared. 9 different vocabulary items instead of the full xAPI complement of over 800. They're starting you with a minimum vocabulary rather than saying you should pick and choose everything. And a lot of designers will get overwhelmed with the number of options and the number of replications there are within the full xAPI vocabulary database, if I can call it that. There's a website that ADL hosts. So does that make sense for the back end a little bit?
A little confused with LRP.
Okay.
Because is it the same thing like an LRS? Because how you explained it, LRP can be, and can it be a YouTube site too?
Yes. So
right. So
Yeah.
the way to think about LRPs is like you think about like an LMS, for example, that you were talking about before. An LMS can send statements to an LRS.
Yes.
Sure.
So the LMS in that case would be considered the LRP. So the LRP could be a YouTube site. It could be soft skills.
Yeah.
It could be some micro learning, anything. Yeah, and really anything that's sending data over to the LRS.
Okay. And so, just for my understanding, the xAPI statement needs to be added in the LRP for it to send data to an LRS.
I'm not sure what you mean by added. It's constructed. I have an example that I can jump to.
It's not always. It doesn't always have to be. So a lot of vendors, including Watershed, have the capability to have you send CSV data or CSVs over to the LRS, and the LRS will create the xAPI statements for you.
So are you seeing this makey page?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So in this instance, I built an application that uses a web page, a web application, to send a statement. And so right now I have JSON as a structure, but it's really a skeleton. So not submitted yet. It's ready. It's undefined. that is literally telling you that no data has been added. Now, what I've done for this example is I'm using the WASD keys. So if I type the letter A when the browser is active, I get this JavaScript response that I programmed this to do this. You've selected the A key by clicking on the red button. And what I'm doing is simulating a joystick and arcade button arrangement that I don't have connected right now. But what I did is I clicked the letter A. When I click OK, the JSON here is going to be updated. So when I click OK, it's actually sending the statement to the LRS and receiving a response. And that is going to dynamically update on the page here. So you see it all collapses, but one of the key things to notice is the LRS has provided an ID for what we've sent. And you can see the structure here. I've got actor, verb, object, result, and context. So I can jump down into a number of levels of detail. You can see probably more than we want, but the idea is I get a result. The idea is someone has just answered a single question. So it's marked the completion as true, but the letter A wasn't the correct response. So it's marked success as false. So they answered the question, but they didn't answer it correctly. And then if I look down into context, there's some parent information, there's some category information, meaning it's an activity, and I put in a URL as an ID. So it's showing the kind of information that is being built by the web page that is talking to a JavaScript library that's actually building this statement. And once I click the button, the letter A, and then click, confirmed it on the JavaScript dialog, it's actually sending it to the LRS. Does that help you visualize a bit?
Yeah, so just for example, what we are looking for is we have an internal software where no one has access to it, only the employees have access to it who are internals. And what we want is everywhere in the software there is an icon, which is an help icon for them if they want to see a video on how to do a certain task. Okay, now we want the data on how many internal users are clicking on that icon and viewing a video, so that that video can be marked as complete in the LMS too.
Right.
Because they've watched it in the internal software. So in that, I believe the internal software is the LRP, because it is providing that data that, okay, the user went out here and did everything.
Yes, it's sending the statement to
the
LRS.
LRS.
Yes.
And then we take the data from the LRS and then add it into the LMS, which tells the LMS that, okay, this person viewed this, so mark this course as complete.
That sounds backwards. Like, I almost feel like it would make more sense to send something to the LMS to indicate that they've already completed watching the video, and then have the LMS be the sole thing that is sending statements over to the LRS instead of doing this weird thing where you're trying to send stuff to the LRS, because then you're sending both from the LMS and from this other application. You're sending statements and then trying to figure out who actually completed stuff. It just makes more sense to have everything go to the LMS and then from the LMS to the LRS. It simplifies things, I think. Does that make sense?
It does, totally. We would love to send it directly to the LMS, but there is no way for us to send that data from the internal software to the LMS directly until the LMS has an LRS inbuilt in that.
The LMS doesn't have an API at all?
It does have. I'm sure it does have. I would have to check, but
I just would suggest that approach, because that way you don't have as many connections that you're relying on to make it work.
okay.
Yeah. Anyway, but you get the point. Is what we're talking about. So
See, I was also going to elaborate it. It also depends on exactly what you want to capture. If you're just capturing the fact that they've started viewing and assuming that they watched the whole video, you're not really assessing whether or not they've watched. You're just saying, oh, they started it, so we're presuming they've finished watching the video. They watched all the time. They didn't scrub ahead. They didn't pause or leave their machine. So there's a lot of nuances, and the profile that I talked about, CMI5, is one example.
Mm-hmm.
There's another example that is a video profile, and again, it's a subset of xAPI as a whole, and the idea is that profile will allow you to capture information about someone's interaction with video. And some of that design aspect depends on how is it implemented. Can they scrub forward or fast forward or pause? Or once they launch it, are you taking over the screen and they need to watch the whole segment? Again, there's other more detailed issues, but I think one of the things that Izzy was alluding to is you're not getting a true measure of completion. You're just, if you only track whether or not they've started it or whether they've finished it, you're not really tracking comprehension. But a lot of organizations wind up starting out with, okay, how do we see if they've completed this video segment? Let's mark it as complete in our LMS. So David, thanks for joining. How are things in London?
All right, joining from London, yeah. I was caught up in another call, so there was a clash today. Yeah. So,
understood. So we are about a half an hour into my Zoom meeting that's limited to 40 minutes. So there's going to be a forced break now that I've switched back to sharing. I think I need to switch back to this and see if we can't. Copy invitation, and I'll go into.
Just hang on a bit. We need your bank account details.
Yeah. You first. Oh, is it not pasting? Of course it is. It pasted twice. So if we do get cut off, this is the information for the next session. Hopefully everybody can see the chat. And what we were doing was sort of talking through some of the slides that I've talked about. But David, if you wouldn't mind, I want to backtrack a little bit and have you do the introduction for yourself. Basically,
Okay.
as we go through this process with each of the team members, I'm capturing this, in a recording, and this way you can have a chance to introduce yourself. I know it's the four of us right now, but others that catch up with the recording would be able to see this.
Right. Let me just put something into. I want to put the link in the chat here. Where am I going to put it? That'll do. Okay, we've got the link there. Do you want me to do an intro about myself and the project?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, so my name's David Bovill. I'm a long-term software developer in the LiveCode programming language. I'm interested in the xAPI from the time it was Tinkan API, I was doing a peer-to-peer educational project back then. Basically, now what I'm particularly interested in is embedding the Experience API into a global open learning platform around climate education and climate action. And I'm looking to start kind of series of online courses with various communities to enable them to make their own mobile applications that would interface with an LRS and one or more LMSs. The nature of that project is that the learning experiences would sometimes be in universities or colleges, but also sometimes in the workplace, and would be focused on teaching people how to take relevant action in their local context. So we aim to present this project at COP26 in Glasgow in November. And I'm here to learn about how to actually create enough of a framework and set of libraries so that we can then start designing particular learning experiences into mobile apps with various communities. So we've been doing some a series of courses, for instance, with students in Pakistan and students in India and various other languages and cultures. And we basically want to look at how can we create a global interoperable learning platform around climate education and see who's already got data there, who's already got the same desires and similar platforms. So we started reaching out to people, and it might be a kind of piling into this learning cohort a little bit unprepared and a little bit late. We were aiming to announce this project in Earth Day, April 22nd, and really just getting the hang of the community and the nature of the various providers, trying to choose an initial platform to set things up correctly, and in particularly working with Brian and the LiveCode developers that are around to create a native library that will allow us to create mobile and desktop experiences that connect probably to WordPress-based LMS. That's my main focus, but other people might be interested in other things. And yeah, yeah, right.
Suddenly you got choppy. Suddenly your audio got choppy right after you mentioned WordPress.
That happens, I think. Yeah. There's certain political concepts it's not really that part.
Yeah, I'm afraid it's still bad audio. Are you hearing us okay? Okay.
Okay. There you go. It's probably better now.
Yep, that was better. So I do have a warning on my screen saying we've got just over 8 minutes in this Zoom, so we can proceed to the next one if you all have time available. Again, I've got some slides prepared, but we could also go sort of a round table and see what are people wanting to discuss in the time that we have. I know David just came online, but you've been helpful in answering some of the questions that Toolkit has had.
Well, I think, I'm sort of a relative newbie to the LiveCode platform. So even just like just like a 5-minute overview of what it is, and then I can go ahead and play with it, on my own would be helpful.
All right, we can do that. What I've got here on the screen is overview of the Makey Makey project. That LiveCode project is actually up in GitHub, and I can give you a link to that, as well as Let's pull that chat up again. So I shared this page. You see the Team Makey GitHub link. That'll take you out to that GitHub site. I've already got it open out here. And the code is over here under the code tab. So if you wanted to download some of these projects for LiveCode, you can pull up the Cohort Makey one. I think stage 4 is the project. Stage 5 has some images that I added in. So let me see if I can get that back in the chat. And you can pull that up if you want to play around with it a little bit. And what I've got on the screen is an overview of the project. So I've spoken a bit. This joystick kind of interface interacts with the Makey, and then the LiveCode project is actually talking to that web page that I just showed you, interacting with the JavaScript library, and it uses a web server called http.js, which is JavaScript based. That's the .js, and is acting as this learning record provider. So all these things in combination are sending the statement to the learning record store. So I just sort of walked us through this. It's talking about the web technologies, the application, the printed circuit board, and the learner response device. So I'm not going to go in too much detail about the Makey side of things, but the web server is acting acting to enhance or activate the JavaScript library. And what I did is the Mac HTTP.js is running on a local computer, so the Duckworks page is publicly available, but the mode that I'm in locally is I don't have to worry about uploading via FTP or WebDAV. I can just pull up my local network and work on the files. And just to give you some view of it, the early version of the application's here on the left, the data that's showing up in the web server's here on the right. So when I load a page, when I click create, it's actually going through and loading that page. And then the URL is shown up here on the top to show my local URL. The xAPI statement will then send to the Squirm Cloud. Early on, we were using Joanne's Squirm Cloud, and later I updated the web pages and JavaScript library to go to my own. And that is basically the process. You can see xAPI wrapper.js, project CSS, crypto.js is a library, and then the project.js is the xAPI wrapper file that has a lot of the project-specific information that you can sort of dive into. And if you view source on that URL in the Duckworks, you can get access to each of those files. There's not really any big encryption or protection of that. Again, it's acting as a local web server. I've got some redundant slides in here. I apologize. I don't know if you have any questions about that. So this is a brief view of what the early LiveCode application looks like. Now it looks more like this. So if I jump over into LiveCode, I can show you the same application. And we're down under 4 minutes, so we're going to do the quick overview of this. So my tools palette, again, the screen is sort of crowded because of Zoom and all that. My tools palette shows up. The key things here is LiveCode is an interpreted environment, if I have that correct. So if I click Browse, I'm actually running the application, and if I click the pointer tool, they call it, I'm going back into editing mode. And you can see the web URL browser widget is the key piece here that switches back and forth. So at this point, I'm looking at that web page. Again, we talked through this. So if I click on that and type the letter W, I get a response that I've selected the W key, which indicates I click the blue button, I click OK, and it updates like it did before. So again, this is a browser widget within LiveCode, so it's actually talking to my website and pulling that data up. And once I confirm that JavaScript, it's actually sending that statement. The Makey piece here is an interface to an external keyboard type device. And at this point, I'm just showing you what the web page is doing. And this, let me go back into pointer tool mode. This is actually the code. There's two main blocks of code. There's a stack and a card. And the metaphor is that LiveCode is like a stack of index cards. The stack can be an object, so all of them can see the stack script, or I can specify that only certain scripts will show up at the card level, and only objects on that card see those scripts. So David, would you say that's a fairly good representation?
Yeah,
would you
sure.
want to add anything?
Just that this particular approach for the makey thing is kind of like basically like oh, what's it called? With the embedded browser,
the widget?
The name's gone out of my head.
Okay, we've got less than a minute. I'm sorry to rush you, but we're going to need to switch to the other call.
Yeah, I'll probably remember what I wanted to say by then.
Yep, hopefully you will. And there again, this URL in the chat, which is only active for a few more seconds, should get you to where we're going.
Okay.
So I basically need to close this call to get us into the other one, if I recall correctly. So I'm going to hit stop share.
Got it.
Is everyone ready to transition?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, let's go ahead and jump over there. In for all. Apologies for that part of the process, but here we are. Izzy's coming in. Hi, Izzy. Glad you were able to make it.
All right. 1 second. Let me just run to the bathroom.
Yep.
I'll be right back.
There's going to be a minute before others can join. Go ahead. Hey, David. Izzy took a bio break. I don't know if you need a minute. Oh, yeah, let me do that.
Oh, hang on. Sorry.
That's all right. I need to jump
over
over into Slack and post our next meeting. Oh, looks like Izzy beat me to it.
What I was saying, Brian, is what would be useful for me, if you just reorientate me in what's going on with the cohort right now, because last week was really chaotic. I had a friend go down with COVID, or a colleague go down with COVID, had to rearrange all sorts of things, and I've just been out of the loop since I saw the opening video, but I'm just, this I take it is the first session since the opening video, but have I missed out on like 1,000 parties and things that I should have been doing? Just orientate me would be cool.
You really haven't missed much. The first week or two is really just sort of getting up to speed and people getting into Slack and the teams that are coming together, setting up a GitHub repository, they call it.
Yep.
So I've set that up for our group, and I've actually built the update and put the URL into the Slack. And the idea is that anybody coming on with the cohort would be able to look at the Slack and sort of catch up with us. But we are running ahead of the game, really, because we've had a chance to meet. Izzy, I don't know if you realize this, but I actually sent well, I think I did mention it the first meeting. I sent a posting just the end of December to the LiveCode list and said, hey, people are interested in learning about xAPI. There was a posting on the list that had someone was interested in CMI5. Unfortunately, that individual has yet to respond, but let me just turn off my timer. But we were able to meet 3 or 4 times and sort of do the introductions. But the challenge is we've got a group of live coders. David is one of them that's very experienced. And then we have a group of xAPI people who are familiar with the cohort. And then we've got some that are noobs in both. And, I'm sort of herding the cats right now. So we haven't, to answer David's question directly, we haven't really dove in very well. I was sort of prepared to do that now, but I'm wondering if you would feel comfortable, David, in switching over to LiveCode and sort of showing Izzy around.
Sure.
Yeah, because I mean, while while David's kind of getting that set up, I think we mentioned kind of this yesterday, or somebody did on our call yesterday, that basically to accommodate sort of the range of experience that we have, in this team, it might be helpful just to kind of see what a minimum viable product is, see what we can build something very small in LiveCode, so that way everyone like me who isn't familiar with LiveCode can kind of also get adjusted to that system as well. And then, see, can we connect that, can we send xAPI statements from that into an LRS? Yeah. So that way, even people who are more familiar with LiveCode, such as yourself, David, can also get familiar with xAPI. And that way you're sort of accommodating both people who may be not familiar with both systems. Then at the latter half of the cohort, you can then, take on your pet project, Brian, which is the Mickey project, and see if we can then, okay, now given what we know that we can build something, can we then revamp your project to then send xAPI statements directly from there instead of using the web servers and stuff like that. Does that make sense?
Yep.
I'd sort of like maybe picture it from my point of view, or how I see it as well. Doing that, it's kind of maybe saying the same thing, but maybe a little bit stronger and more direct. I don't know. But maybe I screen share now just to show you. Yep. So I think I typed in a link before for where you can download LiveCode, the community edition. If I just, you've disabled screen sharing, Brian, I think, rather than enabled it.
Since we got into a new session, I have to do that again. So multiple participants. All participants.
So just Izzy, you tell me where you're coming from in terms of like programming languages, or what you'd like to know, and I can maybe fit it into that context.
Yeah, so
you should be able to share. Sorry, Izzy.
No, that's okay. I've been I've worked as a developer a couple of years back. It's been a while, but I mainly work with Java. I've done some work with Python as well. So, yeah.
So, I mean, it's basically, apart from its pedigree, it's a cross-platform C++ application development environment, which you can extend fairly easily using and interface with native APIs on mobile and what have you. It's available on desktops, Linux, Windows, and macOS, and as well on mobile. So it's kind of Java-ish in that sense, but under the hood, it's an open source C++ library framework on GitHub, and it's kind of education friendly because it's used in schools to teach coding, and it's got a very simple drag and drop metaphor, and the syntax is very English language like. So it's it's got its problems, but the aim here is, so I'm just going to show you like the real basics. It has this stack and card metaphor, so I'm just going to create, you could create it, let's say, set up for tablet and mobile sizes, and it'll immediately, if you like, deploy directly to, let's say, your iOS devices that are connected, or your Android devices. So once you've created the code, you can make the desktop or the mobile applications, and it's something that kids could do or teachers could do. Yeah. So if I just create, let's say, what you can see here is I've just created what you'd call a stack. It's just a window.
Nope, I don't see
We
anything.
are frozen on a drop down of edit menu.
Right, sorry. I don't know why it's freezing. I think I might need to update something.
It's,
I'll just
I don't think it's you. I was using Zoom earlier today and also yesterday, and somebody was sharing their screen, and it just like it's been I think an ongoing issue, I think, with Zoom.
Yeah, I think it is for the last month or so. I updated Zoom last time and it fixed it.
Yeah, I
let's
was going to say
see
stop
if
sharing
I can
and
just do
start
it
sharing
again.
Looks like you're doing it.
I'll just try it again. I've got 3 windows out here. There might be something with that, but can you see again now?
And nope, this is the same problem I encountered. It just says that you started screen sharing, but doesn't actually show your screen.
Really?
Okay, let's try
Yeah,
a
this
different
is
window,
definitely
see
a
if
Zoom
that
problem.
happens.
Yeesh.
We'll try this way. This might fix it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Here, right?
Okay.
That's kind of me with a green screen thing in front, right?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. All
Okay.
right.
Yeah,
That
put your
works.
tools to use. I'm going to pin the video for David.
Okay. So here, just to do it again, when you open up, you actually get some tutorials and some help and things. I just skip straight to making something. I can create a new stack. I can choose the size, iPhone or tablet. I'm just going to create a default. This is kind of your window. And let's say the kind of project that I'm looking to do is probably initially to make a desktop application that people can interact with and use as a background for Zoom interactions, right? So I'm thinking of that. So I want to put some environmental and some educational material or a game that I want to create together with the kids or the teachers. Yeah. So we might start off by saying, okay, we want to put some text here, and I can, type my text in here. So there might be some people taking some text from Wikipedia. You might say, I want to put a video on the background here. So let's say here's a video that might be an environmental widget. You can also drag, let's say, a browser element that would show a particular part or a whole web page from something, or you could interact with some web creating. So you've basically got a hybrid environment where you can take JavaScript and web technology and these kind of native sort of widgets that work on your Android or your iOS or your what have you. And it's got a card metaphor. By that, what it means, I tend not to use this. It's a little bit old-fashioned. But for instance, I can create here a new card. Since I literally never do that, I'm just searching for the menu item. But here would be the second item on the card. If I use the sort of arrow key, I can go from the first screen to, if you like, the second screen here, and I can have a shared background, or I can put new devices, new elements on the screen. Again, just drag them over. Maybe we want a clock here or something like this. But like I say, I never really do that. I always just stick with a kind of one-screen design. each of these objects has a little palette so that you can basically customize them without programming. So this browser element, for instance, if I want to show the kind of the URL for that browser, I can just type in kind of the URL. It has properties here, locations that I can set. But I'll just show you the kind of the programming language for it. So, for instance, if I want to, we were just talking about the URL there. I can, well, here's. You probably can't see it so clearly because I'm not screen sharing, right? But if I wanted to do something like set, I don't know, the background color of this card to yellow, I'd just literally say set the background color of this card to yellow. Set the background color of this card to yellow. It says, I've spelt it wrong, so it says there's a spelling mistake. I can look up the exact name of the property by sort of looking at the properties of the card here, and it says here, for instance, that this card is got a name, and it's got here where it's got colors. It's got foreground color, a background fill. I think I'm using, I'm just changing something here. I'm using a different version than I usually use of that. So I'm going to change something here to the name of the LiveCode property here. So here with the card, it says things like foreground color or background color. So I can see that the card has a property background color, which was one word. I made a spelling mistake, right? It also has a very nice dictionary here. So if I bring up the dictionary, I can look up things like, I don't know, let's say card, and I didn't type properly. And I've got basically, why is it not? Why did card? There you are, card. So I've got the card object here, and I can look up its full properties, and I can say, yeah, I can set its behavior, its border color, its the bottom of the card, the top, all these properties of the card, and then you start programming. So let's say if I want a button here, I'll just make it a bit big here. I can attach a script to that button. And here's the kind of script editor that Brian was showing you.
Yeah.
And I can just say things like it's all event driven. So on mouse up is the way to do the event. Set the URL of the browser, for instance, you know, if I wanted, or I could, you know,
change the background color.
Already. Set the background color, for instance, if we want to do that.
Right.
And I could set it to a random color or all these sorts of things, but let's just make it green now. And then I apply that. There's the script editor. Let's put this away, so it's a bit clearer. Now when I click on the button, it's going green, or I change it to red, you know, and or what have you, and you do this sort of thing, or you move to a location.
Okay, so each of the window as a whole is a card, and then each of the individual elements are objects on the card, and then when you have multiple cards, it's a stack.
Yes.
Okay.
And there's inheritance, so you can put scripts at various so at the stack is the highest level of inheritance. If I put a handler or a function at the stack level, it would be available to all the buttons and fields and so forth. If I put it on the card level, it's only available to all the objects on that card.
Okay.
If I put it like I did on their button, the scope is only for that button. So it's kind of like object oriented in that way.
Got it.
You can do things like, you know, if I just if I say set the color to I know something else like blue, and then I say put URL http google.com, some URL there. When you run this, it will now change it to green, and it shows the data of that URL, the HTML. And I could be fetching an image, or I could be calling the API, the JSON API. So you can put, post, get, do all the kind of REST stuff. And what I've just started working on is to just go through the xAPI library and start doing that, so that then as you move from card to card, or you click on things, or you scrub the video, you can be logging those events. So one part of the work for me would be just to do that. Then I want to basically have a kind of framework, like a template for making an educational mobile app that, let's say, a school could have, but then they can just customize the content or the color or the look of it for their own school, and then create their own app, mobile app for their particular school. Right, so the aim there would be to make a kind of fun learning environment where people can create, and I've got lots of information available already in JSON format, and a web version I can show you, which is all a kind of collaborative writing experience for environmental issues. So on the website side, you've got this kind of thing, like, let's see, Daisy World is the site. We're writing, no, I'll show you for SDGs. So we've got this site called goaljam.org for hacking on SDG goals. And what there is basically a wiki here, and you can just double click to edit things. Each student has their own wiki, but each page, let's say if we take the content of this page, the Partnership Jam page, I mean, they can be a lot prettier than this if I find ones with videos or images on, is basically JSON. It's a node program that interprets the JSON. So you can just get this JSON, and I can put it in the mobile app. And reading and writing JSON is what this environment is about. And each one of these kind of screens here is mobile shaped. So you can start writing and putting images on the website, and each student can have that. And you can be, even if you're not a programmer, you can be creating the content that you want in the mobile app. You know what I mean? So you bring some teachers and you say, all right, here's a little video and here's some text, and they just start creating that in the wiki. And then there's other people who might want to do the programming, and they can then take that kind of data. So the aim is to bring a diverse group together, some of them who are interested in writing and researching about, let's say, sustainable development goals in the environment, and they start curating videos and images and writing text, and then another set of group that start looking at, okay, we can take that and put it into a mobile app, and within that there might be some little games that you can play, but I'm thinking more along the direction of an interactive book about environmental action.
Got it. Wow. Wow, that was a great overview. Thank you for walking me through that.
Okay, no worries.
Wonderful.
Hello, Peter and
Hi, Peter.
Henry. We're just able to join.
Sorry I'm late.
No problems. David just gave a quick overview of LiveCode, and unfortunately, we'll have to refer you to the recording.
Yeah, it's all right.
Rather than start that over. I need to mute. Sorry, I need to mute my phone because somebody's bugging me.
Well, hopefully I'll be able to do it properly next time. I'm not prepared there. I'm actually going to leave this Zoom and rejoin because there's an update available, and I want to see if it fixes that freezing problem.
Okay.
So I'm just going to.
Martin's just connecting in audio.
Brian, when people are working on LiveCode, like on this project, is there a collaboration feature where we're all kind of in the same project?
Not that I know of. Martin, do you have a response to that? I think
there. You can do it through Git, but you need to build it in a certain way. So LiveCode stacks are binary stacks, but they changed it in a few versions, or last version, where they can have script-only stacks. So if you save all of your libraries and all of your code in script-only stacks, they're just text files. So then you can version it with GitHub, and then you can collaborate through GitHub. And a developer who, Trevor DeVore, he's had a couple different frameworks he's built, and so the current one is, or his most recent one is Levure, Levure, like yeast in French. But he has one, and it's designed around that idea. First, it's the framework, but it's designed with that you move all of your code down into these script-only stacks, and you only keep the very basic code, like a window. A button will have on, mouse up, or you could have that at the card level and somewhere. But you can. So each object that has script, its script is stored as what they call a behavior, and that behavior is a text file. So you just have to do the framework in the proper way. And I've got, I started working on one of these, like set up this and made a small library to work on LTI, like to try and connect it up with LTI. So that I could contribute and just leave that one I haven't really completed, but we just add another library for it for xAPI. And then the card controls or the other controls, like a player control, if we use that, each of those would have their own script, because the way LiveCode works is you can put script anywhere, which is really cool and really easy to get things up quickly, but can be really bad because your code is everywhere. So
like the old Flash, where you could put stuff behind a button or in a comment file.
Exactly. Yeah. But if you plan it out right, then you can just organize it properly. So there is a way to do it, and Trevor has got a lot of help files, and I think LiveCode is sort of incorporated it because you find the files for Levure on their within their site page, their company page. So it's sort of sanctioned, I guess. But Trevor, I use the one. In my current application, I used his first generation of it, which was called GLX application framework. And it's the same type of thing, although it didn't, at that time, we didn't have script-only stacks.
So one of the things when we talk about object-oriented, the project browser, took me a moment to find it under tools. The project browser allows us to look at the stack level and then the card level and then what is on the card. So you can see down to individual pieces of text and buttons. So these are blocks of text that I've added into this, and then I can go through and select them, which should highlight them on the screen here. And so this is actually a way to get into the hierarchy of it. You can see my tools palette here. So I don't know, Martin, do you have something you want to show to walk people through?
Yeah, I'm just looking to see if it's on this machine or if it's on the other one. If it's on the other one, I can just quickly drop it over. Recent file.
I mean, the key to this application that I built for an earlier cohort is the web URL browser widget. And one of the fundamental things is I can go through and click the browse tool, which is actually running the app, so you can see it loads the web page. And then if I go back into the pointer tool, I'm literally in edit mode where I can drag things around and move things around. So the demo that I've showed before is if I'm on this page and I type a character, it's sending a statement from this stack to a web page, and at this point it pops up a JavaScript message and allows me to confirm that I want to send it. And then down here I'm actually seeing the details of what was sent as my statement. So it's actually updating in a visual way the web page to where I can navigate down in.
Okay, I found it, and I just have to do an airdrop so I can open it.
Okay. I'm going to double check and make sure I'm a stop share, and I'll double check and make sure that we have multiple participants and advanced sharing here. So all participants can share. You should be able to take over, Martin.
Everyone's like us. There was an old TV show in the 70s or something, and it was sort of this open. Sorry, I'm talking while I'm doing this, but it was like what do you call it? Like public TV. But they would come in and they could just do their TV program, whatever, and so they would have to know how to use the controls and the this and the that. And
yeah.
Now everyone has their TV station sitting on their desk, and they have to know how to. Okay, how do I let you join in? How do I add this? Like, it's really, we're all making TV.
Yep.
Okay, now
you can
that
see
I've got
David's
that,
browsing around. He's got his video overlaid with his desktop on the background.
Okay, so yeah, I just started a few days back this beginning of a library, text-only stack library native to LiveCode for the xAPI. I'm using at the moment LRS that was set up with LRS.io, but I haven't chosen one to start playing with. And yeah, just want to start. That's kind of what I was thinking of getting ready and working on. And then, yeah, I don't know if you've got any feedback, Izzy, from what I'm thinking about in terms of running a class, or Brian, about how to get people from different backgrounds to get involved, because you mentioned a particular kind of way of doing it. I'm imagining similar sort of thing, but I'm imagining some people would want to work on content, someone might work on like organizing things, and some people work on coding and bring people together in that way. It's more like a kind of hackathon ethos rather than
Right.
How it's kind of done here. So I don't know how well that will work with the normal way it works with the experience cohort. I was imagining kind of trying to get that ready and then do a kind of 6-week hackathon in the second half of the cohort and invite people from outside to join. And I don't quite know how receptive or of what interest it would be to be with people within the existing cohort, for instance.
I think there's interest. I know Martin's still hunting for his project, but I know he's expressed the interest in the video profile. And there's other team members that have sort of mentioned that there's specific types of content they want to interact with. So I think having a few projects during the latter half and letting people realign into what content type they want to work with would be a good way to plan out the remainder of the cohort.
So how does the whole social side of this work, this cohort? Like, for instance, I created Team xAPI for the environment, and there's Slack, and I can start piling into whatever the general room or the main room or whatever it is and chat to people. But is there anything facilitated in terms of like, hey, why don't you turn up in this open space meeting and tell us about the projects that you're doing, and if someone wants to join someone's project, go and chat to them into this Zoom breakout or whatever. Is there anything kind of facilitated in the process, or are we just left naked and cold and alone?
About the third week they start doing team report outs. So at this point you've done, I think, one of the premier first steps is building your team in Slack. But the other thing you should do is basically cross-post that description into the main channel and say, hey, I've created this Team xAPI for environment. Here's a description of what we're trying to accomplish. Please join if you're interested. So you're getting people, you're drawing people in from the main channel to sign up for this team. And then the other thing is just post an update in there once, at least once a week, but it might even be every day or every other day, saying, we're talking about building this content out in the latter half of the cohort. Are people interested
But I've got a library for like Slack in any case, so I could build a little bot to like spam the channels.
What do you think, Izzy? A for creativity, but probably a negative for impact. I think if you build a bot, people are going to catch on to that fairly quickly. But if it's dynamic,
learning exercise.
if you actually go through and build some AI and actually get people to dialogue with it, you may be able to accomplish it.
Because I saw the opening video and what have you, but I haven't dived fully around and familiarized myself, apart from Slack and the opening video. Is there like a calendar of what's going to be on?
They talk through that in the Thursday afternoon session. They'll have a slide that shows what happens each week, but there's not really anything that talks about when the teams are meeting or whether, what those timeframes are. Basically, each team that's forming over the next couple weeks is going to try and build a regular meeting schedule and allow the team members to add it to a calendar. And I'm sort of challenged with this, is we have such a diverse group, literally worldwide. We have interest in multiple time zones. So the challenge is how do we build this, a single or a dual meeting, weekly meeting that allows everybody to tie into that. So I'm still sort of exploring for a tool that I can use, like When to Meet, that says, what's the best time of week? When to Meet literally asks you, are you available these days? Rather than trying to get at the defaults over time. And speaking of time, I've got a warning that we're down to only 4 minutes in this Zoom. So I'm going to go back through and pull out the next block and put it in the chat.
Okay, well, I actually won't be available to join that one, but I would recommend that you also just add that into like the channel on Slack.
Right. I appreciate you doing that.
I added that part too. Yeah, that way in case you lose it or whatever after the meeting closes.
Do you have any feedback for my slightly strange introduction or what have you? Does that any advice, any feedback, any thoughts from your end, Izzy? How to clarify things, any questions? I don't know.
I think no, like you mean like the intro to LiveCode that you did before?
Yeah, and just the general idea of how we might run something and attract people from different backgrounds. This idea of some people writing content and using the web, and some people programming, people from an educational perspective and people from a content perspective and bringing them together. I mean, has it been done before in this? Does it seem like it would work, or is it going to be too weird for people? How do I describe it?
Oh, no. I think it's fine.
Okay.
I think you could totally do this. What I would suggest, though, is it's really in just how you frame it yourself when you're asking, you give people that call to action. So if you say something like, I'm building this, Team xAPI for the environment, and here's our goal, and that's all that you give, people might not really know how they can contribute. But if you say something else and you say, like, here's what our goal is, and here's what we're looking for, people, to not only write content, but also build some of the technical pieces, I think that might attract, a higher degree level of people, because they're like, oh, okay, I can write stuff. Maybe I'm not so good with the technical pieces, but I know I can write some content for you. There's a lot of instructional designers here too. So, as part of this cohort, who will definitely look and have experience building things with learning objectives and building the right content, building it in, the right modules and lessons and stuff. So yeah, you're more than fine. It's just a matter of, again, just framing it.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. That's what we had with the Zoom team, because it was people with all range of technical skills. So if you saw Miranda's, she was on Team Zoom, and she ended up to be the person doing the main presentation and explaining what was going on in that, which she was an instructional designer. So it was good to have a mix of people with all their range of skills.
Great.
Cool. Well, thank you all. I look forward to the updates, Brian, I guess. And we'll go from there.
So I'm sending out an updated meeting notice via email. I put it into Slack. Understand you need to transition, Izzy, so thanks for joining us.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, glad you were on board. Is everyone else able to transition with us?
Yeah. So you send a new link?
Yeah, I emailed it. It's also in the chat.
Oh, okay.
So if you go ahead and click on it in the chat now, it'll open a new web page. And then I'll go ahead and transition us. Oh, just died. So off it goes. David's ahead of the game. Peter is in the waiting room. Hey, David. Glad you made it. Let's see if Martin can join. David, I think you're muted, or are you just joining?
Yeah, I'm here.
Were you able to do that update?
Yeah, I did the update, yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if it's made a difference. I can test that. But
yeah, well, I don't know if we want... Oh, let me, while you're reminding me, I'll go to advanced sharing options and turn on all participants so anybody can share. Peter, hi Henry.
This is something that I might be able to set up, by the way, if it's useful, because this being kicked out of Zoom.
One
rooms,
Zoom after another.
It's a bit problematic. So this is a small company, New York company that has donated to the World Climate School this platform that they have, which is called KikoChat. And KikoChat basically lets you create a number of spaces with a number of Zoom rooms that you can label, and then you can just click to join them. And you can then move from one room to another, and they're open just generally. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So it means that if I set one up, I'll have to talk to Inga Mehta for let's say this group,
So I found
when we come here, we can just click on a link and join Zoom.
I got it all
And
queued
it's
up
open
if
all
you
the
want to see
time, and it's not taking up our
the
private
framework,
Zoom.
like how that works.
And also, if there was someone wanted to do a breakout and
I can't seem
do
to
a
hear
particular
anyone.
thing, they could just
Yeah.
click and join another Zoom room. Just a thought.
Yep. I
Think
appreciate
about
it,
that.
David.
Hello?
Martin, are you hearing us now? Martin's fighting with it a little bit.
Yep, he is indeed.
Oh, sorry. There.
How about now? Can you hear us?
That's good. Yeah, I had a different.
Yeah, sometimes Zoom to Zoom, the audio gets.
Yeah, it was just going to different
Frustrating.
headphones, so
Yeah.
went to Bluetooth headphones, so that wasn't helping. I could hear someone's mice talking somewhere. So, do you want me to show you the
I think
the
we're
live
ready
code?
for that. I think that answered Henry's question. I think I already set up sharing for you to go in and share and
Okay.
put it on screen.
Okay.
So
So
we're
I'm sharing my
seeing-
screen and
Yep,
all my
email.
email. So there you go. Nothing confidential. Just a second.
Oh, don't tell them where the Zoom meeting is. They'll find it.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Recursive zooming.
Yeah.
Just keep going. And it'll be like meetings and meetings upon meetings. Okay. Live code starting up.
Yep. And when you were connecting, David was suggesting that there might be an option out there for getting us into multiple Zoom meetings through a sponsored activity, it looked like. So hopefully he's going to follow up on that for us. Go ahead, Mark.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to open. Okay, so this is the structure of your application. So it's got different folders that has a lot of stuff that it just builds it for you. So these are the things that allows you to save preferences in the right places on your Mac or your Windows. It gives you different, an application packager that will package up all of your files into a compiled application. It will do all these extra things, and that's just sitting there like utilities that it has. Oh, that's nothing that we actually use. So, but what you're really interested in is the stuff that's within the app. And so within the app, there's libraries. So this was where you would write your libraries and store them. And there's your standalone. So that's where the stack that you would write to be your user interface. And it might be, within that, there might be several stacks that are part of that. And then all of these other things are just parts of LiveCode. There's script architecture, so there's behaviors, front scripts, back scripts. That just is the order that a message traverses. So whether there's different beliefs of top down or bottom up or front to back or whatever. But it goes from, from front, wherever it is, from front to objects like buttons, to card, to stack, to back script. And you can insert scripts in between. So that can have different effects. Like if you wanted to suddenly overtake all mouse commands, any mouse up would be caught by the front script.
Right.
And then you could handle them, and then you could pass them on. So if you wanted to add a sound for accessibility or something, you could catch it in a front script, and then that would still traverse, which is a pass on mouse up, it would traverse. So there's different uses for those.
Yep, and I was just thinking that they tend to use the metaphor of cards, but we've all got packages of Post-it notes now, and that's probably the metaphor where we're looking at for a more common understanding, as people can understand a stack of these that are together in a stack, and if you split them off, they're operating. They can be customized and operate independently, or you can maintain them as a single stack.
So in a UI, the tool set right behind you for LiveCode, are you browsing your hard drive there, or is there a panel?
Yeah.
Did you go into tools or somewhere, or?
No, this one's just the hard drive right now. I'm just looking at a file in my hard drive.
Okay.
Okay. And so these are all just files. Most of them are script files, or I mean text files, but they have like LiveCode script. It's just the extension for a script-only stack. Like if I took that and opened it up in TextMate, there's only one line to this one, but it just has its name. That's the update.
Looks like you're downloading an update. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So those are so because they're text only, then they can be incorporated into Git, right?
Okay.
Okay.
So can I jump in there a bit, Martin?
Yeah.
So Henry, this is an advanced, I would say, framework.
Yeah.
He's referring to it as Levure, forgive my French. The idea is if you want to build LiveCode projects within Git that can be edited by multiple people, this framework solves that problem.
Okay.
What I have done is built individual stacks that have the code within the object-oriented structure that we talked about earlier, where some of the code might be in a button, some might be in a card, some might be in the stack. But in order to put that into GitHub, I need to zip that file up, and it means it's not editable by a team. Somebody can download it and use their own copy. So Martin is in the advanced mode of this framework might help us in terms of we would be able to do pull requests, we would be able to share updates and then push them back up into Git as a team.
Yeah. And Brian, you could still do this kind of thing.
Right.
You just there's a menu item where you just save the stack convert it to a script or create a behavior.
Okay.
So for your button, it creates a behavior, and then all of a sudden, all your script is in another script-only stack.
Okay,
so you can do that for the card, for the button, for a window, for whatever.
Yeah.
But anyways, so all of this is very complex, but you really don't have to use it all. You use you can add libraries, so we could have xAPI video library or whatever. And I've got my little live LTI library. And so I've got some things like get the library version, send the LTI credentials. So they have a username, a password, and the app ID. So this is just a text file. So as I edited it, and then I'm doing I just put a bunch of things in comments. These are for D2L different commands. So get and put and delete and all of these different things. But they're just placeholders to add in the stuff later. Okay.
Okay.
So, but the application itself, so that's the one thing you would edit. The other thing you would edit is the standalone. And so here I'm opening the standalone, and this is TextMate. So it just starts with a button to open the application. And so right now I've got just a stack or a password thing, but it's just anything you enter in there. And then it just reports back my credentials are this and that. So this is just to capture the credentials. And then once I say okay, then I had some things where I could enter settings, and then for LTI, I don't remember, devcop.brightspace.com, the app ID, which I set up, all these different things. And then I could create a request, and I just had the different things.
You pretty far down the road, so isn't this adapting that for xAPI? It's kind of the same pattern we're going to go, right?
Yeah. So I started on it, and that's why I thought I could just post this up, and then people could start working on it to create. So this is where you can create a new card. So this is, let me see, cancel. Close this. No, don't save it.
So the card is like a Windows form or something to me.
Well, yeah. So a card. So I'll show you the project browser.
It's just not good practice to use cards. I wouldn't use them.
Yeah. Well, yeah. You wouldn't use. That was sort of the hypercard metaphor, was you'd use cards. So you'd have a database, and you'd have each record as a card. That's sort of an old hypercard way of working with it. But now cards are just, basically you have a stack, which is your window, and then the card is what's in the window. You could have several cards, but like David said, generally you have one card in a stack, and then you put your objects. But you could have, in my app, I have 3 cards, and each one is a different view of the window. But there's different ways you could, because there's some things you can move transition cards and stuff like that if you wanted. Okay, so this is
practice to break everything up into one stack per interface, and then later on, if you want to combine them into something weird and wonderful and together, you would combine them. Just keep it simple, keep it separate.
Yeah.
And there's.
So here's that first that standalone stack that I opened. And so it's got a card ID, and then on that card is one button, and the button is open application. And there's some script in this stack, but the script, there's no script in the application, there's no script in the card, but the script is in the stack. So if I click on that, it just says on relaunch, past relaunch. So that's just to handle a certain situation. And then I've got a behavior. This is the Levure framework. This is built in there. So all I do is it just runs it. I can't remember right now, so I can't explain it, but I just wanted to show you that. And then the app itself, or the library, anyways, I just wanted to give you an idea of what the framework is like.
Martin,
like
can I ask?
and
I gotta admit that I only just installed it during the first Zooming, which was 7 minutes ago, and tried to do hello world while we were talking here. So, the card concept.
Screen share and ask some questions.
Yeah, why don't you screen share and show us what you were able to do?
Oh, put me on the spot. I got 7 other projects open. I just have some questions just from initially browsing. One thing that you said, David and Martin, related to cards. So I thought that LiveCode was going to let me create mobile apps that I can possibly put in the App Store on iOS or on Android. Mm-hmm. And so that would mean that what I just heard you saying, that's not good practice, because I was trying to think of what is the container or the stage for my app. And when I see the other windows opening, and I think it's more like a desktop app than a mobile app.
Well,
if you have a look at why don't you screen share?
I'll quit mine.
I'll be blocked. All right, I'll be on the spot. Why not?
Yep. Why not? Take your turn. That's part of the point of these things, is to learn from each other. So.
I was also looking, saying I know that there's a sample code in there's a CMI5 client library. Yep. So in here is sample JS that not only does the post the API statement but it also has the CMI5. details in it. It's like this would be easy picking to sit over here and do things behind some HTML5 button, which is where I thought I was going. But then I saw Martin already had the post and everything worked out. So it's those posts and poking around in here for syntax seems like the way to go. So when I was looking around here, I was like, oh, that's cool because I need RFID and barcode and QR code reading. And like this said, when I hovered over it, it said something about Android only. And then I figured, well, there must be a way to get other widgets for iOS or something like that. And that didn't immediately come up. But I know I'm taking you guys off a tangent. Sorry. I was looking for other things like RFID or QR code, and I was expecting like a barcode scanner to be both iOS and Android, but it wasn't. Yeah. Are you guys doing stuff for like broad mobile deployment, putting it in the App Store? Is that what you're trying to do?
Yeah, but what I would say is the transition at the moment is to this new form of native widgets, which sort of will, so the extent of cross-purpose native widgets like this Android bar scanner and libraries is quite recent. So there's not an extensive library of cross-platform widgets. It's actually pretty easy to make your own one, but there isn't one. There isn't a lot of stuff there apart from the kind of the basic stuff. So if you say, "Oh, can we do this?" we can tell you what you can do. But yeah, it just happens to be no one has wrapped the cross-platform barcode reader. Yeah, there is, I think, a script-only version of it, but I'm not sure. What I mean by that is it's.
I think there was Monty had made a Monty.
Yeah.
Building, who writes a lot of, he wrote externals as on his own, and then he got hired, and that all got brought into the company. One was called MergeZing, ZXING, and it's an iOS barcode reader. I don't know if that got incorporated into the current version of LiveCode.
Yeah.
But sometimes just looking through the dictionary is like if I go to the dictionary and just like.
So just to skip back, you were talking about mobile and deployment. If you just went up to it looks like you're on a Windows machine. If you go onto File, you can see when you say New Stack, the menu there, it's got layouts. I mean, all it is for mobile is just get the size right. So basically a stack. When you deploy it as a standalone, you can deploy it as an Android package to deploy or an iOS one, and if you connect your mobile in the right way to your PC, you can deploy it directly to or pretty well directly straight onto the device. So you just basically save or compile your stack to the right platform. You might need to drag and drop it, then the relevant package onto Xcode or the equivalent. And there are some other slightly neater ways, depending on whether you've got the commercial environment or not, to deploy live. It's also got the which I tend not to use, the simulator, so you can just deploy to the simulator, the Android or the iOS simulator on your desktop as well. I don't tend to use that. I just put it straight on the device and test that. Mainly speaking, I do most of the development on the desktop because it's just quicker, and test it out on the desktop with an understanding that that it will work on the mobile, understanding the bits that are different between the platforms, and then just regularly testing it on mobile.
So Bart, just to add, so the way barcode works is through the iOS camera app, or library. So there's a command called merge AV cam barcode reader or start barcode reader, and whichever control calls that, then it'll get a message. If the camera finds a barcode, it just says merge AV cam barcode found, and it gives you the parameters. So it's something that's handled by their iOS camera library.
Would that
because
be in the
iOS
dictionary?
handles that through that. And so Android one must have been created later because no one had one for Android. So they created a widget instead of using their camera library for Android.
So when we created the iPhone 6 version, it set the stage size to something that would be probably appropriate for the iPhone 6. And then, somebody changes things to landscape and liquid layout, and you're controlling things coming and going on that screen by writing code. It's not like a container or not that concept of HTML5 where the liquid layout is free-flowing and style guide and sheets. You're doing that same work.
Yeah, it's sort of. I mean, I've got sort of code that does that liquid layout stuff for what I've been doing, that resizes it and what have you. But the HTML5 fluid layout stuff is far, far better. So if you want that, you might often actually use the browser widget, and you're basically using that for sort of your elements. Detecting the rotation, there are events for that, and then you can kind of switch layouts, and that works pretty well. But it's for instance, if you rotate it, let's say horizontal, just hide this menu bar or shift this menu bar to the left, or but yeah, that's the HTML browser liquid. So anything you design in HTML5 there will respond. And so I had a widget, which HTML5 version, which will resize it as you rotate the mobile app, and then let the HTML5 do the kind of responsive flow within it, if that's your way you want to go. But you can sort of like top and tail it with various buttons or navigation bars that you might want to do in LiveCode. So you can do a bit of a mix and match, if that makes sense for your application.
You could also this is where the two cards could come in handy. So you could have two cards, and one with a landscape layout and one with a portrait layout. And on the orientation changed, if it ended up landscape, it would say go to card landscape. Well, first you would lock screen, go to card landscape, which has all of your buttons, but your code just goes when you do on-click, browser widget, or on-click start or whatever. It actually would just say mouse up in your card, and it says what's the target? Okay, it's start button, then do the start button code. So you would only have one layer of code and two different formats. So that would be the quickest way to do it. So you're not you only redo all of that figuring out once, and then you're not scripting it by you're not manually adjusting all of the buttons each time.
So the content of this browser window is an HTML file that's some part of the package or a remote endpoint, or are these buttons, if they were dropped into here, are not somehow part of the DOM?
No, they're not part of the DOM.
Okay.
The native, what you looked at in terms of the sort of HTML widget. So if you like, everything below the sort of line on that tool palette is the old school kind of rendered in C++ stuff, if you like, with a little bit of an attempt to be able to skin it for different platforms. And the widgets above are the new native widgets, or the widgets that can, for instance, can take advantage of the operating system's native way of rendering stuff. Yeah. So the HTML5 widget you use because you can basically it's in transition. You can export to the web HTML5, so it's a big fat basically JavaScript library, and at the moment they're adding the ability to export as WebAssembly as well, and those widgets will export to the kind of so the HTML5 button will export as part of the JavaScript kind of DOM integrated thing, right, if you like. That's what it's kind of at the moment in a halfway transition between the old way of doing the UX stuff and this more modern way of doing the UX stuff, where you have take advantage of the capabilities of the native platforms to draw your UX elements. And yes, so I would be tempted, if you've got some relatively advanced kind of fluid layout, to do that in HTML5 and JavaScript and CSS and JavaScript, and because that's just there's so much browser technology put into being able to do that well, that makes sense to do it in that. And the kind of LiveCode elements are just kind of, I don't know what the point of them is in some sense. It's like it's just a very interesting educational language where it's very readable, it's very easy to use, you can drag and drop and you can get kids to do it. The metaphors and the language are very nice from that point of view. And just the ability to create quite simple cross-platform applications, on Android, iOS, and desktop, make that quite a rich educational environment, and it teaches you a lot about coding in the different platforms. But in terms of doing a modern professional app, it's in a bit of a halfway house at the moment.
Yeah. No, that's fine. That helps me understand expectations. Thanks for the diversion. I need to put in the effort to try build and compile something in order to keep up with you guys.
And on the sort of more advanced stage, I think if you find some libraries in C# or in Java or in C++ or something like that, and you want to wrap them, and you know enough sort of Java, for instance, it's set up pretty well to be able to wrap your Java libraries and deliver them on Android and iOS, I believe. It's just something I haven't done, but that's part of this new way of creating your own extension libraries, and then you can provide easy to use English syntax that access that
component. Sure, you compile it in. Okay, it's very similar to PhoneGap, and then the UI or the concept seems similar to Flash. And I'm not sure if you guys ever played with the Macromedia Authorware. Similar, except that it doesn't have the flow line, which was a nice metaphor in that product.
Yeah, it's got that kind of pedigree. But that's the sort of thing you could actually create, is that kind of flow line type interface for a particular, customized for some sort of learning workflow or something like that. And then make that available to people as a kind of open source framework, which they can then use and customize.
Thanks for that tutorial.
Yep. So Henry, one of the things you were looking at, I think I can go into demo mode and share. Again, we're under 10 minutes. So one of the things I've done is I've got a button here for remote. I've got a button here for local. Are you seeing my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So if I go into my code, one of the things I need to do right now is validate the URL, and it's 204. So this is some of the some of the LiveCode script that is interacting with the JavaScript. I need to go into stack, and I've got some variables set for.
You guys probably be comfortable with Arduino coding. Looks similar.
I haven't really done anything with Arduino, but I have worked with Pi. And let's see if that functions here. So I just saved. I'm going to go, it's working to save, there we go. Browse mode. And then I should be able to use this URL to jump between the two. Is it not responding? What's going on there? Too much for my demo.
Go in here.
Close and remove. Okay. So that basically takes that out of memory, and then I'm going to open recent. Good thing I made a copy for today. So I didn't update the URLs up here, but I did update them in the script. There it is, 204 is in there, local. So I'm not seeing any change in the page, which is what I expected to see. Huh, maybe I didn't get it in the right place here. Stack. Oops, I need stack script, not stack inspector. It's like I was a little hasty in seeing where the URLs were put. There we go. Browser refresh. 82. Should be 204. And upworks.biz.
So when we were trying to use the embedded browser back in the day with PhoneGap, it was the issue on iPhones where it wasn't the same capabilities as the Safari browser. And we're trying to do things with WebRTC or with SignalR with the messaging, kind of real-time messaging into the browser. And those were kind of when we did, even though you would be, it was a pathway to quickly create an app and have the web browser hosted in it. It just didn't. That web browser was crippled for some of the more modern functions.
Yeah, and they keep switching between different versions of the embedded browser from Chrome to WebKit and back and forth as far as I can see.
I see.
It's gradually getting better. That's what I know. And the embedded browsers are getting more capable as well in standard space. So as far as I can see, it's pretty capable now. But I haven't done a huge amount of experimentation with it, and that's what I quite like to do now. And what Brian's showing there is it's now got quite nice two-way communication with JavaScript. So the JavaScript can send out to the LiveCode environment, and you can pull into it. That works pretty well as well. So. But
can you point me to any one minor example, like where the web page, some script in the web page is making something work in a local?
Brian should be able to just show that here now, and we can even debug it live, which is quite nice. I guess that is all contingent on him getting it working here.
So I did get my statement sent, and this is from the local machine, so I was able to get that updated.
Did you get a Henry's request there just to show the code that is calling the JavaScript?
Let's see.
Actually, where the JavaScript might leave the browser and do something in LiveCode app.
So
Is that halfway possible?
Yeah, that's halfway possible.
Script.
Basically, you've got to then edit the JavaScript to call. So this is the other way around.
So this is the LiveCode script. On key down, I'm trapping for what key. If there's a space, if it's one of these letters, G, F, D, S, basically I'm trapping for what you see here, W, A, S, D, F, G. And the makey is sort of limited to some of these characters. It has up, down, left, right, space, click, and then those letters. This is actually
the web browser control above wanted to light up an LED on your makey. Can something that your web browser page is getting from the server tell your LED to light up in makey?
Not that I've been able to determine. The makey is sort of hardwired that if I'm making that connection, you would see the interaction.
So the code is talking to the web browser or out to the internet, but vice versa is not.
No,
as I understand it, the code isn't able to do that.
Past each other a bit. Brian is talking there about the capabilities of makey. Yeah, you basically you in JavaScript. Trying to remember the exact syntax, but you basically.
While you're doing that, I'll switch over and see if I can
You
show the
need
code.
to tell the browser, the browser widget, the browser object there, it's got set JavaScript handlers as a property. You basically, so if you double click on the browser there, Brian, I don't know if you've got that. Have you got anything that you interact with the browser and it does something, or is it only the other way around?
The letters, if I send a letter into the browser widget,
if you click on the browser,
it is interacting
the other way around.
I'm sorry?
If you click on something in the browser, does it do something?
I can expand
with LiveCode.
Yeah, not with LiveCode. So wow. Lost track of time. Wow. So that was a faux pas. I lost track of time.
That's right. I found my way back somehow.
Yeah. Sorry, David. How do you think that other tool is going to work? I don't know if we'll get Peter back. So I was starting to show where the JavaScript interacted. Should I just continue on that path?
No audio if you
Yeah, sorry, I just showed something here just a bit simpler rather than a particular application, because that's all the thing that Henry's not asking about, which is basically how LiveCode would interact, would call JavaScript in the browser.
This is what I have highlighted right here, David. Do select G in widget.
Yeah, I know, that's the other way. So what Henry was asking was the other way around, right? So if you have a look at my screen here, yeah.
Okay. Let's go to David's.
Okay.
Yeah, just a moment.
Let me stop sharing.
Kind of there.
There you go.
So what you have here is, let's say this. If I look at this browser widget here, you have a property of it called JavaScript handlers. Yeah. Can you see that on the screen? It's just when if you double click on the widget, to get the property palette up, you've got this property called JavaScript handlers. So you can set the JavaScript handlers to some handlers. And if I bring the help thing window here, here it is. It basically shows you here in the descriptions, if you look for JavaScript handlers. So, sorry, if I put that in the chat window.
So you have some functions in there that become part of your DOM, and you can
you basically get a global LiveCode object, and JavaScript knows it, and then you can call it and pass some parameters to it.
Beautiful. Okay.
So you can do round tripping.
So in the world of Visual Studio, we would sometimes embed the browser control and use a similar technique for like hacky things like utilities that would web scrape or do some function creating PDFs or something. So that's nice. Okay. Thank you.
So for instance, what I was thinking of doing, which I haven't done, is to take this, the open source project here that I've got for this kind of wiki here, with all these objects and sort of interaction and all the things I can do here. And this is a JavaScript-based application that I might have shown before, which fetches content from different servers, so I can also have that window over here and move them around. And what I could do is I could basically get two-way interaction, so that whatever these kind of buttons are here, or whatever the functionality is when things happen, and what I would need to do is just edit the JavaScript so that it would call out to LiveCode when I click on various things here, and the other way around. And then I could just embed these web pages in the application, because they're already kind of doing the kind of flowing and the responsive stuff, and I can also prototype here and get people to kind of put content together and images and video content using just the wiki, or to extend this, because each one of these elements, like that paragraph element there, is a node module which is just doing a particular job of rendering markdown there. But this one here is another little kind of Node project, a Node plugin, which is showing, in this case, if I show that, it's showing what plugins are available on the server, for instance. So, or this particular Node module is showing time zone information, and these are all small JavaScript files. So again, you could sort of develop something for the web interface or the mobile interface, and quickly prototype the two. And I'm looking to enhance the two-way communication there, because I've mainly been working with this JavaScript environment, and that way you can get people kind of, because I've got this environment here, so that I can do things like, which this part is coded in LiveCode. So for instance, if I take, where's the link? Have I got it on here? Today's activity changes, yeah, tools. This bunch of tools here, this thing here, for instance, just sends a post to this LiveCode server, post request, sending JSON with the URL of what was dropped on it. So if I take something like, this is a boring one, but maybe if we look for, I don't know, something with an image on it, like ant, a Wikipedia page, I can take that URL and I can drop it, well, it's this one, wasn't it, onto this area, which then does a post to a short piece of, it's a microservice basically, a JSON RPC post to some code in LiveCode that it could be in any language, and it then looks up the API of Wikipedia, and it's got a video here, for instance, and imports some of that. And this is now available as JSON, so you could program that quite nicely as an array in LiveCode or some other language. And so you could get a bunch of people just saying, okay, what's the life cycle of an ant? And there's another page here. And if you want to move this image somewhere, you know, over here, and start writing, you're off and going. And this happens not to be ideal because this is important. This is a little bit of HTML, that image. But the video, for instance, was a pure video object. And this way you're kind of playing both in the world of JavaScript, modern JavaScript apps, and you can be experimenting with the mobile app in a kind of community learning environment, you know.
So it provides kind of awesome utility, and I'm wondering, just not switch about LiveCode now, but about your application there. So it's working well because Wikipedia is exposing things in JSON. Like you can't go to Google Views and take something from the BBC or the New York Times, and then it'll ingest it.
This one here, cast.podpub. This is for podcasts, and I just experimented with a bit of RSS here. So I think WikiFeed here. This is looking at a science alert feed, and this is taking RSS in. And these now are individual objects that can be dragged around as well. Just see, I don't know if I'm logged in. Yeah, that's logged in there. So for instance, you know, there, if I want that article, I could bring it over. This one here is Radiolab, their podcasts here. I've also go directly to podcasts. So here, this is searching for podcasts. So is there a podcast you like?
No, I just wondering, it's still like I see another RSS feed. Like if you just went to Google News and you clicked on some news article of interest, can you ingest something from like a very, very foreign source?
Well, so I've got it set up, news.google it'll be, won't it? So there is, I think, there I got, because I think Google News, oh shit, what is it? What is Google News?
News.google.com.
Use
That's the third one down.
Yeah, why didn't it work it?
There it is, the
before?
fourth item.
Okay. So what I would do here, it's all based. Let's say if you what you want to be able to do is say take this article, but no, it's going straight to the site, right?
Yeah.
What I've often done, and I don't know if this code is working, because I think I've turned it off. But what I do with something like that is it'll just take the yeah, it's not working. So it would take the O embed, the Twitter embed, or the Facebook embed, if it's on that page, and show you that. Do you know about that O embed stuff?
No, but I ran. That sounds like something to look into. I ran into the other issue where it won't render if it knows it's not in the parent page or if it's in the iframe or something. Many of those news sources don't. And we were trying to do something very similar to this related to for training use, where we're doing health and safety training, and we wanted to quickly ingest news stories to continue to manipulate it like you were.
What I meant there is there's this stuff here in the header, right, of the HTML. This is designed for when you do sharing, you know, and you want to tweet the page or you want to share it with Facebook. It takes this information out, the image, the description, the title, and pretty well anything provides this information now. So I can always bring that in, right? So that will have a little summary of the page, a link to the page, and an image of the page, and then I could bring that into the environment, and then you click on it and it'll open up the full site. So generally, it's sort of about just providing what I want to be able to do is you, like you say, drag anything onto this screen, and it'll bring in some of that content for you to start writing about. And I've done it for images and podcasts and iPlayer stuff, news, all the things that I use quite a lot. And I'm trying to set it up so that it's almost quite a fun little programming challenge to just write not exactly a scraper, but something that uses an API ideally. But at default, it will take just bring in a link and bring in the Twitter card or the O embed card basically, and the OG, I forgot what it's called, the Facebook. Twitter and Facebook are fighting over that metadata.
Some great capability. So we also have in the aerospace world where we would have the tech hub as being one resource for the document, and what we need to do is satisfy that the training is completely accounting for the document. So we have the document in one window, and we created like some drag and drop where you take the paragraph and you bring it over to the other side, and then you write your training about it, and you account for everything in the original document, and then later you have configuration control, because when the manual changes, you know where the impact is in your training. This whole thing is a product, not for us, but I mean, it's a utility for us, but it can be a business or a product and stuff, as you know, right? Getting this dialed in is pretty cool. So. Thank you for sharing that. That's nice.
And yeah, so what I'm looking to do with that as well is, like, this is really just an experiment in collaborative writing with many authors with their own sites and how that works. So you've got things like here down the bottom right hand corner here. Is the sites that I've come is in my neighborhood that I've come across and I've read pages with, they get loaded. So then when I search for something like, I don't know, wiki, it instantly pulls up a very quick search, because I haven't searched the internet, I've searched all the pages in this neighborhood. Yeah. So Brett Weinstein is an interesting character. I don't know if you know him, but he's a podcaster. So I've got some stuff about him here, right? Similarly, so like that orange site here was this other wiki, which is all to do with Federated Wiki. Well, this yellow one here, I don't know what it is. This one is to do with the future of stuff. And this ability to know that, for instance, there's an older version of this page here and there's a newer version of this page, this all this kind of stuff, and how you write together is more of an experiment than an actual end-user interface. And what I'd like to do now is combine the learning from that and the fact that this is a distributed, federated, everyone owns their own data, has their own URL, their own writing space kind of environment, with a mobile experience that links to the Experience API, so that you can kind of have your own writing space and your own notes, but you relate that to more organized, like, certificated sort of experiences of learning.
That's perfect. So my needs build exactly onto that. So we're doing something like, not like what you are, but with the essence of, of taking some articles and curating them. And then we're trying to figure out how to, so now this is crowdsourced, right? So we met several authors, but how do you deploy this to your learners in like a learning campaign, and what in this abstract body of knowledge is your goalpost of saying that this is a new policy, or this is a new risk that you need to know about. So you've curated some content. Now you want to deploy this with some goalposts to say that my people have read this. Now you can put a quiz at the end, or you can say they've read 3 out of 5, or you've embedded your own widgets in here, like a discussion forum or a question or a thought-provoking question or an activity. So it goes, it's all the things that you have, plus those few little things that we're calling social learning. It's not just the collaborative creation, but how do you unleash that on somebody where you still have some metrics?
Yeah, and that's I guess the same space. So I'm thinking, I want to give people the freedom to be able to write their own notes, and some of them are like I want to write like a poem about my local park, because I'm exploring. I'm thinking more in the environment and those things, but it could be, I'm studying medicine and I want to write a little piece about the experience that I'm having in the hospital at the moment, and what I'm feeling and what I'm thinking that I'd like to share with other students, or just for myself, and then be able to link that to all this other information that's out there. So, the material provided by the course, Wikipedia content, material provided by other students, and then as I'm exploring that and writing that, and also keeping that for my, after I've left university, or after I've left this, I've got my own multimedia document of my learning, and then insert in that journey, like you say, these learning events and these little tests and these little games, and figure out what that dance between those two things are.
Very cool. Nice work.
And then the one thing, bringing it back around to xAPI, is that's the things that you need to have some way to send statements. So you said, I wrote notes about this. Like, John wrote a note, or reflection note, or John wrote an answered question or the quiz with result this.
John added a page.
Yeah.
Reflected on that page.
Yeah. Oh yeah. If he gathered,
viewed pages.
I don't know what it would be exactly, but there would be something like, if I write this page here. So let's say I've been writing about sustainable development goals, and I'm writing about hunger or what have you, and maybe this is the default page, the learning page, but now I'm going to edit this and make it something of my own, and I'm going to write some new material here. I can call an API which will basically do machine learning on that text, pull out keywords, that are either the core concepts that I've added or ones that are mapped to Wikipedia. There are a few of those public, where I can actually have my own machine learning algorithm that I've trained on my particular data set that sort of picks out and says, kind of, hey, you've just been writing and researching on those things, and then sends a learning event off, basically saying, okay, you've written some new stuff and it contains these concepts, and this is the URL to it, and then that's logged, and you could then look at the different concepts that different learners are learning and say, oh, these ones are kind of clustered together, maybe we should set a course about that kind of thing, so you get a kind of emergent course design rather than a prefixed one, where you're sort of and some of that can be AI, but some of that can be quite manual. You can like ask people to say, oh, what would you like to learn now, and write a little bit in there and make some links to these dictionary terms or something, and then you can generate a little graph of those concepts, and you can look at them as a teacher and say, there's a little cluster there and there's a cluster there, and then you show that to the class and you say, okay, so it looks like this is what we're interested in, shall we research this bit then? And that's the more kind of project-oriented or open-ended sort of class, rather than you have to cover all these particular stages to get your certificate. And they've both got their points, but it's kind of, I guess I'm exploring more the project-focused, open-ended side of things, and less the I'm just going to check that you read that and you wrote that and that you completed this, which I can understand why people who pay the bills will often want that side of things, while the learners kind of want the other side of things.
Sorry,
I don't feel that I can progress until I've got the libraries. Mine, have you shared what you were just showing on GitHub already, or is that just on your local machine?
The one with the viewer based app?
Yeah, with the I forgot what you call it, not the
LTI?
but yeah, the ITI library.
I haven't shared it yet. I can. I just have to put it up on GitHub, and I've done it before, but it just sort of have to go back and figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
And then you can page through it. Like some of it's stuff I had a student work on to just sort of get it started, but it didn't get very far. So it's been a while since I've looked at it, but hopefully there's enough commenting that you could figure out what's going on. But yeah, I could add it to the, to me, I think it's just, it takes care of all the others. People don't have to worry about all the other complexities of it. It's just a way to, like, you add another library for xAPI, and then then you just start creating the calls, right? So you would say, whatever we're going to use as our, so it's going to be a learning record provider, right? We want to make a learning record provider based in LiveCode. That's sort of the basic thing. And we could decide later what type of learning activities we're going to have generate those.
Yeah.
So we would, so in the window you could have a button that generates an xAPI statement, and the library gets the verb, the actor, the whatever it is, endpoint. I can't remember the whole part of it, right? So I can upload that, and I was thinking of just adding just a blank, just adding the blank library first, and then updating that, and then just start from there, and then people can add it, and then maybe add a window to just the UI window for start to create an xAPI statement, like just the blank placeholders for some things.
Yeah, I'm wondering. Yeah. Okay. I mean, I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, well, if I want to run a sort of easy class to like start making something in LiveCode, given that this kind of library is there, that whole kind of Levure thing is a bit. It just looks complicated, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, you can do the same basic principle by just using the principle of using LiveCode script stacks. And so you just create your plain stack.
Yeah, I mean, shall I show you what I've got? I mean, I always use script-only stacks in any case.
Yeah, and then you just can upload that and then just work on a basic stack, but have all of your, you could still put some script in buttons and some script in the card and the stack just to show sort of the principles, but each of those are all behaviors so that then you can save the whole thing, your binary stack of your main interface. It doesn't matter because all of the scripts are saved in stacks, and then you could just use that on GitHub. That would be a far simpler way of doing it.
So, am I right that behaviors, the standalone, watch it automatically compiles, but with libraries, I think you just have to add it to the standalone builder.
Start using. Well, you add it to the standalone builder so that it's there.
Then I've got to say start using it.
Start using stack, xAPI.
So, but if we only use behaviors, you don't even need to do that. So you could, like you say, just simplify it because you could just set, if it's a library, set it as a behavior, and it's not a problem. Yeah, I'm just thinking, because I would also like to learn the Levure stuff, because it does do the kind of deployment bit a bit easier. But I'm thinking I might take the bits of the Levure project you're doing and then make a kind of easier to use. I'm a newbie to LiveCode. Here, these are the libraries. I might even fetch them directly from GitHub, for instance, rather than something like that. And you could just create a one stack and start playing. Sort of thing.
Well, you could use the same library in both. So you have your one stack with a text, with a library, with a behavior. That's basically you use the button approach, right? You make a button your library, like hide a button.
Do that.
What?
I don't think I'll do that. But yeah, I mean, all I'm saying is I'm imagining. Yeah, playing with it from that point of view, and I'll read the GitHub repo to get the bits that we need.
Yeah.
I've also got whole full Git integration in what I've got, so I can actually save stuff back to GitHub if we need to.
Can I just bundle up, like send you the stack, and then you can put it up on GitHub? Because for me it would be like it's not my first language at all.
Okay, let's do it that way. Let's do it like that. If you bundle it up and send it to me, I'll create a GitHub project and I'll think about what this nice way of working with GitHub, an easy onboarding process for a newbie would be. And yet we've also got this Levure project. So you can teach me Levure basically as you learn that. And I will learn these other bits and pieces.
Yeah. And just on our other thing, I think we're all alone here right now, and I've got to go at 4:30. I've got another call, but I'm just sort of crossing T's on the video link well side of it. I'm just trying to see, because Monty did a bunch of coding for me, and so I checked with him. It took a while to get in touch with him, but just to see there's nothing that would run afoul, and he said no, and I'm just checking with something else. So I just want to make sure, covering off stuff like that. So
yeah, cool.
But I'll just send it by Dropbox. I'll do a Dropbox transfer to you, and then you can take it and do what you wish. I just got to make sure I have no passwords or user account things in it before I do that.
Okay. And I should eat because I haven't eaten today.
Okay. Oh well. It's like 9:30 for you?
Yeah.
Yeah, oh well.
Sorry, folks, I had to go dark for a minute. I got an IV plugged in now.
Oh, okay.
Well done.
Okay, that's good. Saying I went dark for a moment is not good.
Do we have a next time? We've got 10 minutes remaining now that we want to do this on your calendar, Brian?
I think the next agenda item will be the Thursday session tomorrow.
Okay.
And if I recall correctly, I don't know if I have that up and running. Let me switch to the calendar.
In our Zoom one, it was like we did one. The Thursday was one thing, the 2 o'clock, and then we had another, generally once a week, a Zoom meeting.
Yeah.
Are we going to have a? Because it seems like you're sort of saying, okay, today and then tomorrow and the next, and I don't know that I can attend all of these.
Well, I sort of front-loaded the beginning to get the introductions out of the way and to give people time.
Okay.
Options on time, but what I'm looking at the When to Meet site right now, and we were sort of double loaded. Tuesday and Wednesday had options, but frankly, Thursday through next Tuesday or Wednesday, there's at least 3 people that can't meet on every time slot. So I don't know that we have a good option, and that's what else I would say we need to talk about is how can we determine a good regular meeting time rather than fighting this week after week.
Yeah.
I don't really want to overload people with trying to set up 2 meetings a week, but I'm literally just trying to give people options of when they can join. Yeah. I'm also getting some pushback that, hey, I can't make this one. And that turned into, well, why would you do it this way? And you know, somebody sort of grumbling at me on Slack, and it's like, no, just join if you can. Because, you know, fear of missing out. People definitely feel that way.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking what it looks like right now is sometime after Tuesday of next week. I may need to just take a stab at setting some time frames and asking people, rather than when can they meet these days, what's the best time each week, and see if I can find that out.
Yeah.
Henry, do you have any comments? Are you able to say you're learning what you need?
So overbooked. It's a little hard to keep track of when meetings are. I would agree with that. But if there was a calendar, Amazon calendar invites would be a wish.
Yeah.
Just to see it laying out there, or the personal invite that you sent out to me with Brian laying out, that'd be helpful too. That's asking too much. I should put more effort into it. I enjoy talking to you guys. I learned stuff, and hope that at some point I can contribute to.
Yeah, I think the cross-pollination is definitely valuable, but we also need to sort of settle into a work cycle. David, you talked about like doing a beginner session. Is that something we should have you scheduled?
Yeah, I just want to figure out. I want to prepare a bit, and I was thinking, like, you know, what the best time. That's what I'm talking about here. So maybe it would be in like week 6 or something, and do it for 6 weeks. You know, I don't know. That's what I was imagining, sort of, and having time to invite people and prepare and all of that. And in this first period, just get the libraries together,
right?
And also think about the best way to do this kind of GitHub thing, and maybe even this timing and calendar stuff, you know.
Yeah.
But it could be another way of doing it. I'm just feeling my way through it. Just don't quite feel ready yet, if you know what I mean.
I understood.
That's all.
But I think there's, as talking before about, you know, who might be involved and different skills they bring. There's a lot of the stuff about creating the xAPI statements. And I can admit I have no idea of how that's properly done. But we had a whole meeting where we sort of picked out what discussed what statements we wanted, then went and looked for verbs. And, you know, so that's a separate task that there may be people who are involved in that task with Some people who are doing coding could be involved, and other things might be pure like, okay, now we know what that is. Let's just write up the code for the library, and then it's making sure we can connect to the LRS, and then it, so it may be at first to say, okay, what are all the tasks that have to be done? Just try and get as many people for that. But then after that, it might be one meeting is focusing on this. You want to come?
Yeah.
The next meeting is about this. If you want to come, so that everyone doesn't have to come to every meeting.
Yes.
It's more you have an idea not only of a time frame, and it could alternate. Like one week might be a Tuesday, the next week might be a Wednesday, just to get people a feeling that they can get involved.
What is the homepage for this? Is it the thread of emails? Is it Slack? Is there a URL? Is it a shared Google Doc? Because it sounds like you're making recordings, and if you wanted to go backtrack, maybe find that list.
So I just put the GitHub link in the chat, and that is sort of our team project page, if you will, where each week we need to publish an update. And that allows you to, also have a link for the code part of the project, but the update itself is what we share with the cohort. In a week or two, they're going to start asking for team updates, and that. Oh, I sent it to my apologies. I sent it direct to Martin, but nobody else saw it. So let me change that to everyone. Thanks, Henry.
No issues.
Yeah.
I'll take it personal. All right.
And are you on the Slack, Henry?
I am on Slack. I don't know if I'm on the Slack or the channel, but I need to be on.
So there is a Slack for the cohort, and then within the cohort Slack there is a project Slack.
Under channels?
Yes, under the channels. So
is there a problem with that link?
The GitHub?
Yeah.
Page 404.
So are you logged in?
I asked me to log in and then proceeded to it.
Okay. So I believe the way it's set up is you have to have access to the xAPI cohort GitHub before you can get to our team GitHub within that. So there is also a Slack channel for GitHub access. You can talk to Matt, I think it's Kluwer, about that.
The URI for the, not the URI, but whatever, URL for xAPI-cohort.slack.com, and then you can join from there, I think.
Teams, xAPI, and LiveCode. Well, the Makey one I can get to.
And then we also have.
What's your email address, Henry? I'll try and do it that way. I can invite you.
Yeah, I don't know why. It's just that one for whatever. The Makey ones I can get to, but the other one I can't. Why would that be?
Well, it says you're an existing member of it.
Ah.
I can't even invite you to it because you're a member of our xAPI cohort Slack channel. So you must be a member.
Well, I'm on Slack. I'm just looking for the.
No, I mean Henry.
Okay.
Henry's in the Slack channel.
But Brian, do you know why I can't? Why I can see the Makey GitHub but not the LiveCode GitHub?
Because the Makey was last cohort, and they created a new folder for spring, and I'm trying to get you access.
Okay.
Before we run out of time, we have less than a minute.
Yeah, I've got to go. I've got another call, and I have to go to the washroom before that. I'm going to be sitting in the lawn.
So,
yeah, it's very odd, Henry, because I don't see you listed among the members, but when I try to invite you, it says you're already a member. Unless you're using an alter ego.
I just invited you.
So I just invited you to the
request GitHub.
Okay. Anyways, I'm going to go. See you all later.
All right. Thank you all.
Okay.
Okay, I'll send that thing to you, David, and you can post that up on GitHub.
Request GitHub team.
Yeah,
Okay,
thanks, guys.
Martin,
Bye-bye.
if you want to send it to me, I've already got access.
Okay, I'll send it to both. Yeah.
Thank you all.
Yeah. I'm gonna go and cook.
All right.